What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Credit Lake, and today I am reading chapters 9 and 10 of Bad Guy, a Cedar-Sides fanfic by Bekka911 here on Wattpad. If you would like to check out the author or the book and show your support, both of those links will be in the description below. Also down there is a link to a Google form where you can recommend fics that you'd like to see read on this series. It could be from any fanfiction site, fanfiction.net, AO3, Tumblr, Wattpad, anywhere. It does not have to be just Wattpad, and it does not need to be written by you. It could be written by some of your favorite authors. So with that, I just want to say all trigger warnings will be in the description below, and here we go, chapter 9. Anxiety stared at himself in the mirror and wondered where it all went wrong. He visited Thomas and had a good, long chat with his host. They'd forgiven, and though Virgil hadn't forgot, he felt a little more at ease knowing Thomas truly regretted his actions. He'd seen Patton and Roman, and he'd apologize with his whole soul. Patton had hugged him tight enough to cause injuries. "None of this was your fault," the moral side had promised, eyes bright. "You were forgiven as soon as it all began." Roman had been less tactile. "I'm glad you're okay," he said, awkwardly. "I too apologize. Had I known Thomas's dilemma, I would have tried to stop Logan. As it was, I was quick to blame you for his issues. I hope I didn't cause you any further harm." It wasn't hard to see that Roman was just trying to keep Patton happy, but still, something in Virgil had been soothed. He hadn't stopped by to see Logan. Logan hadn't come back to see him. Anxiety was okay. Yeah, he wasn't afraid, and he wasn't hurt anymore. And he wasn't wondering when the next attempt on his life was going to come. He wasn't. "Aren't you?" He shook his head, trying to clear his head of the darker thoughts, but they followed him. "You freaked out over something so small. Pull yourself together." They apologized, he tried to argue, feeling sick to his stomach. "Logan apologized. They didn't mean to hurt me." "Can you trust them? Can you find it in yourself to believe them?" No, he supposed he couldn't. He'd accepted his position as the bad guy a long time ago, understood that he wasn't like them. He didn't laugh and play around. He didn't offer Thomas any form of positive encouragement. He wasn't like them. That's why Thomas had taken the pills, why Logan had encouraged it, because anxiety was different and bad and wrong, and they needed to take him down a few notches. His own personal anxiety spiked, and he sank down onto the floor, holding his head in his hands. He had to pull himself together, dig himself out of the hole he'd gotten into. He had to lock away the vulnerability he displayed and rein his composure. He didn't need them babysitting him. And then he was on the stairs. "Hey, Anxiety," Thomas greeted, looking concerned. "You okay?" Anxiety stared at him. "You summoned me. Are you okay?" There was a sudden increase in my nervousness, and I wasn't even doing anything. "Just checking in on you." Anxiety waved him off. "Nah, I'm good." "Okay, then." Thomas gave him a doubtful look, then pulled his hand out from behind his back. "Care to explain how these found their way back to me?" "Anxiety, I thought we talked about this." Anxiety just sighed at the sight of the anxiety pills. I'm not the best. I admit that. I can be harmful to you, and sometimes I get too cocky and need to be taken down. Too much. Like the time with Lily. I'm sorry, Thomas." "They're there for you to use freely. I won't blame you if you use them." "Hey, no," Thomas said firmly. "That's not very good thinking." "I'm not a very good person, Thomas," Anxiety said with a grim smile. "In fact, I'm not a person at all. I'm a disorder." "You're more than that," Thomas argued, but Anxiety held up a hand. I know what I am. I know what I'm not. Your words aren't going to change that." You still have my forgiveness, Thomas. But I don't. I may never forgive myself for hurting you. Anxiety, listen. Thomas's eyes were pleading, face twisted with emotions. I never wanted you to feel like you were to blame for this whole situation. Sure, we blamed you for it, but we should have believed you when you said it wasn't you. Anxiety looked at his host, and something in him softened. Thomas looked so young and scared, and Anxiety couldn't bring himself to keep going. Thanks, Thomas, he said gently, and then sank down before Thomas could say anything else. He came into focus in the kitchen, letting out a heavy sigh and scrubbing his eyes. Guilt was stirring in his stomach, and he felt sick. Thomas was already struggling with so much, and Anxiety just had to keep adding to it with his own inability to move forward. Anxiety? He tensed up at Logan's voice, but then he reminded himself that he was not class and let the tension bleed away. What's up, Logic? He said casually, turning around to face the logical side. I see you have fully recovered? Yeah. That's good. Is it? They stood in awkward silence for a few moments before Anxiety rolled his eyes. Whatever. Anxiety, wait. But he was already gone. Chapter 10. Anxiety? He shuddered and glanced around the room, catching a glimpse of the shadow that had been following him ever since Thomas took the anxiety medication. He'd yet to see the shadow manifest, but he knew someone was there. Anxiety? What? He snapped, pulling himself back to the present. Patton cleared his threat. Sorry, kiddo, but you zoned out and I got kind of worried. I'm fine. I believe you. But Anxiety knew that Patton didn't. Nobody did anymore, and it was eating him alive. Ever since the incident, the others had constantly been checking up on him, and he craved his solitude. Whatever. They don't trust you. He sighed, feeling his head droop as he walked back to his room. They didn't trust him, and while it was out of his concern, it still stung. They didn't believe him anymore. They were babysitting him like he was a child that couldn't do things by himself. I believe you. His eyes widened, and he ran the last few steps to his room, slamming the door behind him and diving into his bed. He could see the swirling shadow out of the corner of his eyes, but still, it didn't solidify. Who are you? He hated the way his voice trembled. It made him feel so weak, and that was wrong. He wasn't allowed to be weak. You know who I am? And he did. He'd known from the very beginning, when that little voice in his head had suddenly sprung to life. He'd wondered how long it would take for it to become visible. Why haven't I seen you before now? Your mind is your weakness. He chewed his lips anxiously. The confrontation with Logan? A breathy laugh. Yes. And then he saw it. The wisps of shadow darkened into black jeans and a black jumper. Black hair framed the deathly pale face with red, blotchy cheeks and bloodshot eyes. The newcomer smiled cruelly. Hello, Virgil. He sighed. Guess I'm gonna have to change to purple now. Damn it. The other frowned. What? Anxiety motioned to the black clothes. We match. You took away my black. I guess I have to switch to purple or something. Why? Are you not afraid of me? Anxiety shrugged. I'm sick of being afraid. The newcomer smiled. Derek. What? My name is Derek. I'm your depression. Anxiety sat back. So it had finally happened. He couldn't hide from it himself anymore. He had depression. He felt it. Knew it was there. And now it was here, and its name was Derek? Nice to meet you. He sounded unsure, and Derek nodded. Pleasure. Anxiety flopped back onto his bed, groaning. As if I didn't have enough problems. I'm not exactly a problem, Derek said, sitting next to the darker trait. I don't affect Thomas in any way. I don't affect the others, either. I'm your personal depression, and I don't do anything except be here. If you feel upset or sad or lonely, that's just my aura. Anxiety sat back up. So, you're just here? Derek dipped his head. That's what I said. Anxiety frowned again. But I thought... You thought I was some kind of monster? Derek interrupted with a sad smile. It's okay. Everyone always thinks that. You and I, we're diseases. We get shamed, shunned, pushed around, just because we do our jobs. We were created to do our jobs, Anxiety murmured. Exactly. They fell into silence, and Anxiety had to admit that it was nice. Depression was nothing like he'd expected, and it was nice to have someone to talk to. I have to admit something to you, though. Derek's voice was apologetic. I will affect you. You cannot stop or change that. I am here because you are not happy. I will not make you happy, but I will not push you further down. Too many people before me have done that. You're different, Anxiety said. Derek huffed a laugh. I hope that's not a bad thing. It depends on whose perspective you're looking at it from. True. I think you're a good different. Thank you, Virgil. They lapsed into silence, and before Anxiety could help it, he giggled. It was just too silly and unbelievable. He had depression, and he was happy about it? He truly was messed up. But he had somebody. Someone who could sit and listen and understand. Why were you so horrible before? Anxiety asked. When you were just thoughts in my head. Derek hesitated. I told you that I'm here to do my job. To give you those darker thoughts is my job, and for that I am sorry. Anxiety let out a breath. I can understand that it's your job. I don't enjoy making Thomas anxious, but that is my job. It's okay. Derek laid back and stared into the swirly galaxy that Anxiety's roof. You are different, too. Good different or bad different? Anxiety joked. Depression thought about it for a while. Good different, he decided. I definitely think you're a good different. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this in the future and stay up to date with future updates on the story, I'd recommend subscribing and hitting that bell so you're notified when the following episodes come into light. If you'd like to submit fics for me to read, you can use the Google form in the description below. All the details are down there. All my socials are also in the description, including a TikTok where I do Satyr cosplays. Please support the author and the book using the links in the description. Thank you for watching, and much like Anxiety talking to his depression, do your best.